Everybody uses buckets, right? I wanted to do a quick video on buckets and pros and cons, how you can use them, different things that you can do with them, stuff like that. So, for the most part, I'm generally talking about your generic 5-gallon plastic buckets you can get from pretty much anywhere. That's so I've got a list of pros and cons, and then we'll go into the lids and what we can do with those, a few different uses for them, and then we'll talk about if they're better than metal or why they're better than metal. So for the pros, they're easy to find. You can see here I've got buckets from at least 3 different places there in all sorts of colors. Number 2, they are relatively cheap. At time of recording, you can get a bucket for anywhere between $2 and $10, depending on what you're doing, where you're at. Different places charge different amounts for the same thing. They are pretty tough. This is point number 3. They're pretty tough. Actually, this one right here, you can see has been smashed at some point, and the little support rib is cracked and the lid is cracked, but it still holds water and it's still functional. So they're pretty tough, and with that, they're what I would call pest resistant. Obviously, mice can chew through them, but in most cases, they won't. They're waterproof, obviously, at least from the bottom up, and then depending on what kind of lid you go with, they can be more or less waterproof. We'll get into that a little bit with the lids. They're super easy to stack, and when they're empty, they don't take up a whole lot of space for storage. And because there are different colors that you can get, there's an easy way that you can organize things. We'll get into that here in a minute. So I mentioned that food grade is available. And if you look at this one, it specifically says it's food grade, it's BPA free, and it's heavy duty. You look at the bottom, it says it's HDPE number 2 recyclable. Okay, well, this is a regular 5-gallon bucket that was $4, which was half the cost of the quote-unquote food grade bucket. And that's HDPE recyclable number 2. There are places that you can get used buckets for cheap and or free. I will say that these guys, they feel heavier than those, but I don't know that they are. So these are guaranteed to be food grade because they're sold by a business and they come with pickles in them. And you know what? HDPE recyclable number 2. So whether or not there's actually any difference in the construction of these 3 buckets, I don't know. But if you want something that specifically says food grade, you can get them. So yeah, there's that. For the most part, 5-gallon buckets are pretty standardized, but if you look at these 2, you'll notice that these lips are different here. These buckets are different enough that the lids from this bucket do not work super well on this bucket, but they do work. The lids for this bucket work on those buckets, they work on these buckets, they work pretty much everywhere, but you do have to pay a little bit of attention when you're getting stuff. All right, so the cons. Let's get into the cons. Number 1, biggest thing that I hate about 5-gallon buckets, they're made out of plastic. Don't know if you knew that or not, but yeah, those are plastic, which basically means that they're vampires. They don't hold up to sunlight. They don't melt right away. This one that we have back here that looks kind of faded is faded because it has spent time out in the sun. And believe it or not, this one has spent some time out in the sun as well. But long term, they do not hold up well. They will crack, they get brittle, you pick them up and they shatter. But you can usually still get some decent use out of them. They'll last for a year or better out in the sun, depending on exactly what you're doing. Number two, going back into the label on that one, not all of them are food grade, or at least they're not all labeled as food grade, if that matters to you. Some people it doesn't matter to, so no big deal. They will crack when they get cold. So cold temperatures, you have to be a little bit more careful about how you use them. If you drop them, if you overload them, they can crack, especially if it's, an older bucket like that guy that's been out in the sun a lot, and then you overload it on a freezing cold day, it'll crack. The biggest thing, in my opinion, depending on what you're using the buckets for, goes back to con number one, which is that they are plastic. So if you're storing food in these directly in them, chicken food, dog food, whatever, you're going to end up with microplastics. So kind of depends on the person. Some people care, some people don't. They're really, really hard to get away from plastic. It's an awesome product and it's absolutely horrible. So one more thing to be aware of. All right, so let's talk about the lids a little bit. I did mention that sometimes you have to be careful, like lids from one bucket won't work super great on another bucket. For the most part, they're interchangeable, but there's a couple of different kinds of lids. There's your standard, just a plastic snap-on lid. It's got a little lip inside there that snaps down around the edge of the bucket. You can either buy a tool to pry the edge off, or you can, if your fingers are strong enough, then you can just grab them like this and peel them off. These are what I would consider water resistant. Obviously, if it's snapped on and you're just talking about rain coming down, then yeah, they're going to be waterproof. But if you're talking about submerging this, then I would say that they're water resistant. Obviously, they're waterproof from here up until you get to this point, and then anything after that, I would say, is water resistant. You'll notice that I've got 3 different colors of lids here, and this doubles with the colors that you can get of the buckets, and we'll get into that in just a minute. And so there are multiple types of lids. These are just the standard lids. They also do make what's called a Gamma Seal lid, and I don't have any here because they are, at time of recording, anywhere between $10 and $15 a piece, but they do have some benefits compared to a standard lid. So instead of this little lip right there that holds it on, and then it's just plastic on the inside, they have an O-ring that sits in there. So when you snap it down onto the bucket, there's actually a rubber O-ring that compresses that makes it really watertight. The other thing about a Gamma Seal lid is it has a removable top. So you can unscrew the top of it without pulling off the part that goes onto the bucket, and you can get in there and get your stuff out. And usually around the top of where that screws in, there's an O-ring there as well. So the whole thing is waterproof and it's reusable, and it's a nice to have. I don't use them strictly because I can get 3 to 4 regular 5-gallon bucket lids for the same price as one Gamma Seal, and I don't really have a need for that. We store our buckets indoors, so I don't really need to worry about weather sealing them more than what we have here. all I'm really doing is looking for, an easy way to store and transport stuff, this works just fine for me. So also, if you just use the standard lids, then they fit into a milk crate perfect, and you can just stick them on the wall. So why do you even want buckets? Why do we care? If you're on a homestead, if you're a prepper, if you need convenient ways to move things or convenient ways to store things, 5-gallon buckets might be where you should look. These things have a ton of different uses. I use them for dirt. I use them for chicken feed. I use them for watering chickens. You can store food in them either directly, or you can put bags inside there. You can use them as a chicken waterer. We have these guys right here with the little chicken nipple. You drill a hole in the side of the bucket and you screw them in, and then you can water your chickens. You can actually buy mouse traps for these things, and you might have seen those in my videos in the past. They just kind of live out in the garden area, and the mice go in there and they die, and that's that. No poison, no snap traps to worry about resetting. Throw some peanut butter on there and they climb up. There's supposed to be a little ladder that hooks in right here, but those just live out in the garden and they take care of the rodents. And then you can use these for food storage for your birds. You can use them for food storage for your dogs. You can use them for food storage for yourself. There's a couple ways you can do that. Number one, you can pour food directly into it. Number two, you can get a Mylar bag, which is food grade and safe. And then you can put the bag inside there and pour your food inside, seal up the bag, and then put a lid on. So one thing that allows you to do with chicken food is it allows you to store more chicken food, which means that maybe you can buy in bulk and you can save a little bit of money if you're buying 5 or 10 bags of chicken food in one shot instead of buying an individual bag. And so benefit number one of that is you can save a little bit of money if you're buying in bulk. Benefit number two, if you've ever tried to store chicken food inside the bags that they come in, mice will go right into those things because they can smell through the bags. These things, in my experience, with just a normal snap lid, even though the mice are capable of chewing through the bucket, they can't smell through the bucket. So as long as you keep your area clean, you don't have a bunch of chicken food laying around on the ground, or you don't leave your buckets open, then for the most part, you should be able to minimize your rodent issues, which means you're minimizing feed waste, which goes right back into saving money by buying more chicken food. So that's a good thing. And then I've heard a lot of folks say that you cannot store dog food in 5-gallon buckets because the oils and the fats in the dog food will cause them to go rancid. In my experience, that's not exactly true. We'll take a 35-pound bag of dog food, split it between 2 buckets, pop a lid on them. Those will stay good for a couple of months in moderate temperatures. So inside the garage, not directly out in the sun, not directly out in cold weather. Within a couple months, it's perfectly fine. And again, we've had 0 rodent issues with the stored dog food. So more benefits. Why are they better than metal? Or are they better than metal? In my opinion, yes and no. They are better than metal, but they're also not better than metal. I don't like plastic. I absolutely hate plastic because it does not last forever. If I have a metal bucket and somebody smashes it or we dent it, I can take a hammer, I can straighten it out, I can do whatever. I don't have to throw the thing away. You drive over that 5-gallon bucket with a tractor and it's garbage. But They're way cheaper. They're way easier to find. They will not rust. They are waterproof. And I don't know if you've ever tried to find a metal container with a waterproof lid, but good luck. They're out there. They're really expensive. I haven't seen one in a long time. So for me, I stick with 5-gallon buckets unless I absolutely have a reason that something needs to be in a metal bucket. If it's going to live outside all the time and it only needs to be waterproof from rain for the top down, then yeah, absolutely. They make metal, like garbage can style buckets with a lid that goes over the top that's got an edge on it, and that'll keep rain out. But if it's something that you're thinking might get submerged or anything like that, it's not going to be waterproof. And so we mentioned that we've got multiple colors of buckets. We also have multiple colors of lids. So one thing that allows you to do is to set up a color code system that's super easy for anybody to identify. So if I wanted to say white buckets with red lids are my chicken food, and I'm going to put my chicken scratch in white buckets with black lids. And then my oyster shell for my chickens, I'm going to put in yellow buckets with a white lid. So this is the one that I actually use. We keep it out near where our buckets are. Really easy to identify. The egg bird food is in a white bucket with a white lid. Meat bird food is in a white bucket with a black lid. Chicken scratch is in a pink bucket with a white lid. And that's all there is to it. Another thing that is available are these little 2-gallon buckets, and these are the same material as 5-gallon buckets, but I use those for, like, when I go out weekly and feed the birds, I'll just scoop 2 gallons out of there, so I don't have to carry the whole 40-pound bucket. I just carry out what I need, and then we're good. So anyway, I hope you got something out of that. It's kind of a lot of information about something people don't really care too much about or don't think a whole lot about. So hopefully you got something out of it, and we'll see you.